Welcome to the LawyerFair.co.uk daily podcast. LawyerFair helps businesses find the right lawyer at the fairest price. But on this podcast, we just chew the fat with some great guests.
So it is the LawyerFair daily podcast, and I am joined here by Caroline. Caroline Ferguson, welcome.
Great, thank you very much.
Now, this is a topic that the headline might not be of great interest or seem to be of great interest to businesses, but actually I think it really is. Now, Caroline was just a little background before we crack on with the conversation. Caroline was a founding member of the Allen Overy digital team, and before that, I mean, generally 4 or 5 years, Caroline, I think you were at the heart of Allen Overy's attempts to become, and I'm sure successful attempts, to become more efficient, more collaborative, and dare I say, I saw it on your LinkedIn, to actually drive better value for their customers. So that's the core. That's where you've come from, and I'll ask you for a bit more on that. And now you're launching, or have launched, a site called livinglawyers.com, which is really an extension, I think, of how can law firms become more efficient and use technology to become more efficient, and therefore pass that value on to their business owners. Have I wrapped it up nicely in that intro?
Yes, you've done a very good job.
Great.
I guess the other things I would add is I started my career as a finance lawyer, so spent a number of years thinking there must be a better way. There must be a better way that is better for our clients and the businesses that we're serving. It's better for the bottom line of firms, and something that's actually very dear to my heart, which I guess where Living Lawyers is coming from. I also think there's a better way of working, which is better for the lawyers. So part of Living Lawyers is not only looking at technology and smarter ways of working and delivering better service to clients, but actually looking at how can we work in ways that is better for the health and well-being of lawyers as well. So I'm trying to pull those two things together.
That makes perfect sense. Now, I had to stop Caroline because before we were recording, we were having such an interesting chat. I thought we've got to capture this. So I'm going to actually ask you to go back a little bit over what we briefly chatted before we started recording. And I mean, you're just a little background in terms of you're mentioning that the financial crisis in particular put much more into sharp focus how businesses looked at the value they would be provided by lawyers and the impact that had on you, for example, at Allen Overy. Just give me a little more background on the changes that you saw take place.
Well, I think in-house teams are obviously having to really look at their spend on lawyers, and so if you're looking at that, you're then seeing what are they delivering and how are they delivering it. So what I'm finding, and with a number of firms I'm working with, in pitches in particular, they are being asked to show how they are going to use technology or how they are going to work in efficient ways. And I certainly saw that the drive for that really came after the financial crisis, and that spotlight being put on how the work was being done. So I think that's been a positive catalyst for the legal industry to really look at how they work. And there's a lot of talk at the moment about the unbundling of legal services. So you've got traditional law firms, as well as online marketplaces for lawyers, as well as contract lawyer businesses, online subscriptions, legal process outsourcers. There's lots of different options out there, and I also think that that's a really interesting time to be in. But also, again, you're having to look at how you work, and law firms are actually having to see, how can I remain at the center of that unbundling? I may not be doing all the work, but how can I help control or manage those services for clients? So I think that it's just a really interesting space at the moment.
I mean, it is. I mean, I tell people that I'm involved in the legal services industry, and maybe a few years ago I would have understood if they'd have yawned at me, but now it is genuinely an exciting space. And I think one of the things that I've noticed, and perhaps you more closely than I, is actually that when you have a recession, traditionally, people do start to tighten their belts and look again at their costs. But once the good times come back, it all becomes to be slack. But I think this time there has been a fundamental shift in how businesses look at the way that lawyers charge and the value they provide. I mean, that seems to be very much your experience too.
Absolutely, and I think the growth of legal project management, I know it is a buzz at the moment, but lots of firms are hiring teams of project managers to help take a more consistent and structured approach to how they work, and properly planning and scoping and budgeting up front, and actually reviewing as you go, and actually debriefing at the end. And I think that shows that this was not just a fad of looking at how legal services operating. That's actually showing that there's a continued desire for a more monitored value-driven way of these firms delivering these services.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Let me give you one of the things that we get pushback on from lawyers sometimes with LawyerFair is, they generally bemoan the change that's happening. But,
Yeah.
even those that are positive, it's a race to the bottom. It's all about being price driven. And actually, in what we do, which is dedicated to the commercial market, that's much less the case. Business owners generally, whilst they certainly want to see some competition and value in the pricing, are looking for the good quality lawyer as well. So it's very much not the case with us. However, my view on that is always this. I don't think I know many law firms, very, very few, that are super, super lean, super efficient. And my response sometimes to them was, well, okay, yes, it is becoming more competitive, but don't throw your hands up in the air and decide you're going to go and open a cocktail bar somewhere. Have a look at your own firm and see where you can become more efficient. And I think that's essentially what Living Lawyers, the use of technology, that's essentially what Living Lawyers is aiming to do, isn't it?
Absolutely. And actually, one thing that I guess I'll acknowledge 5 years ago when I first stepped away from a lawyer and started to do more of an internal consultancy role, I was a bit like, oh, there's lots of great things we could be doing. Let's just do them.
Right.
And then I quickly realized that in a law firm, cultures, mindsets, how we think as lawyers, we're risk averse, we like things to be certain. So actually trying new things is quite difficult. So I've certainly learned that these sorts of things in a law firm, it is going to be about evolution, not revolution. And it is about taking actually small steps and making small tweaks to how we work to make a difference. We don't have to be fully jumping on a new tech system or a really detailed legal project management framework. We don't need to go to that extreme. We actually, like you say, we actually just need to look at what we're doing and just identify some small things that we could do differently and see what difference that makes. And I actually think small things will make a big difference.
Well, the great UK cycling team's aggregation of marginal gains.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I come from quite a sporty background, and I've always thought that those ideas of analysing what you're doing and correcting and trying something different and making small tweaks, it's the same sort of psychology that we need to be bringing into our workplaces as well. And part of Living Lawyers was I want to be able to take a more holistic view to how lawyers work. And I'm interested in neuroscience and behavioral economics and workspace design, as well as technology. I mean, this can't just be technology. It needs to be about people. It needs to be how we work, how we interact with each other, and what we need, actually, and what we need to get the best out of ourselves.
Yeah, well, 100% behind that. Let me just go back to the phrase risk averse, because clearly it is a traditionally conservative, slow-moving sector that is, in fairness to the legal profession, is having to face some fairly seismic changes. Are you finding, or do you find that the traditional partnership structure is a major barrier? Because there isn't a great incentive at the top of that pyramid to see or to bring in innovation and change. And yet I suspect the Youngturks at the bottom are desperate for it. I mean, how do you see that tension, or how does that intention unfold with the work you do?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because I have to admit, from a personal perspective, kind of 5 years into my legal career, when I was thinking, actually, am I gunning for partnership? And I was thinking, actually, no, I don't think I'm someone that can wait 10 years for that reward. And I think that's very common with the kind of millennial generation coming through. We've got a different attitude. We've got different attitudes to work-life balance and that kind of thing. And we want shorter reward cycles, and we want meaning as we go. So I think that whole thing of aiming for something in the future, something which is, very difficult to get and a lot of hard work to get there, I think a lot more people will be questioning whether they want that. Yeah. But I have to say, I've got friends who have recently become partners in law firms, and I have the utmost respect for them, because I just think it's an incredible achievement to get there, and the hard work is just going to continue. So I think it's great that some people have that drive and want to get there. I just think less and less lawyers coming out of law schools are going to want to aim for that.
Yeah.
And actually part of my project which is a personal project around building a 21st century law firm, what would it look and feel like? How would you attract and retain talent? I'm talking within law schools at the moment and interviewing students. And it's really interesting. I was speaking to a girl on Tuesday. She lives with 3 other lawyers. Only one of them is going into a traditional law firm. So I think it's really interesting that there are things about that structure or that way of working at the moment which are not attracting the talent.
Well, I think that's right. Well, it's interesting you show your respect and admiration for those that do reach partnership, and I'm the same. There's no doubt you get there. The graft you've required, the tenacity that's required to get there. But actually, that's fundamentally part of my issue with it, because there are much smarter ways of progressing a career or becoming a great lawyer.
Absolutely.
So, I just think, and that's why I mentioned the phrase Youngturks, and clearly your stat that 3 out of 4 have not gone to traditional firms. There are now many more options. And actually, and technology and platforms like, dare I say, like LawyerFair, we have some boutique firms on our books who are people who've spun out of the traditional firm, the traditional big city firm, and are now, competing very, very well on a much smaller cost base and having a quality of life, dare I say.
Absolutely. And that's what I found really exciting, and kind of part of why I also wanted to finally step away from being in, the walls of one big firm, was that I could see the likes of LawyerFair, the likes of Lexu. There was just a report that Harvard Business Review published. Well, it wasn't their report, but linked back to a report which is all about the entrepreneurial legal services that are coming out in the States, and they profiled 50 different offerings for lawyers. And the headline for that was kind of grueling hours are turning defectors into competitors. And I think that's brilliant. I absolutely love the fact that lawyers have other options now. They don't have to just go into a traditional firm and think, I've just got to slog this out. I've either got to choose that I'm on partnership track or I'm not. Yeah. You can actually now get a good solid base, get some training, and then head out into the more entrepreneurial ways of delivering legal services like LawyerFair offers. So I think it's great that we've got these new players, and I think that we just need to help some of the people still in traditional law firms to, 1, be aware of those options, and then 2, actually help them make that transition. And I'm learning myself, suddenly being an entrepreneur and a business owner, some of my lawyer tendencies about risk-averse certainty, they hold me back.
They're in your DNA, Caroline. That's the problem.
Exactly, that perfectionism. So I guess I'm learning that actually, if we want to encourage people to take on these roles for the likes of LawyerFair or go out on their own, we're actually going to help them make that transition, because we've been institutionalized. I understand. No, and you need to take some of that out.
I understand that entirely. And also, can I say, I've managed to get to podcast number 57 without anybody mentioning Lexo. And I think Daniel must have bought you a pork pie or something. I don't know what's going on there, but anyway.
I spoke at an event recently, and he was also speaking, so he's kind of centre of mind.
I know. No. I mean, Polly, one of my colleagues, Polly, was there. No, I know Daniel, and we're great Larry David fans, so we're swimming very much with a similar current. Listen, that's brilliant. And so, in terms of Living Lawyers project or sweet spot, I mean, who are you looking to work with?
So in terms of how I see it at the moment, I've kind of got survival work and soul work that I'm doing. So in terms of where I'm kind of making an income, it's working with the more forward-looking firms who are really trying to embrace technology, move from just working with Word templates and Excel to actually use collaboration platforms, structured databases, that kind of thing. So actually embrace the technology that they've actually got, but they're just not leveraging. Okay. So I'm working with firms on that, and also legal project management, so helping firms build those frameworks for better ways of working. Okay. And then kind of on the side and parallel, I'm doing just a personal project around building a 21st century law firm. So running workshops, doing interviews, and actually hearing from the people who are in the firms or potentially going into the legal industry, actually what do they want from a law firm? How do they want to behave? What structure do they want? How do they want to be rewarded? And actually looking at the physical spaces as well. I mean, a lot of people are doing work for law firms around hot desking or trying to be more flexible. And I'm kind of thinking, well, are you doing that because you want to reduce how many desks you've got so it's cheaper? Or are you actually wanting to create a space that helps people collaborate and work better together? So I'm going to be spending the summer back in New Zealand. That's just where my family are from. But while I'm there, I am going to be working with a designer to actually physically show what this would look like, and just so we can actually bring it to life. Because I also think a lot of the conversations I have with law firms, they're kind of like, oh, but we're stuck in our ways. We've got hierarchy that will never work here. We've got a legacy system. And I just think, actually, let's forget that. Let's actually start from a blank canvas. And if you could actually create your own from scratch, what would it look and feel like? So that's also what I'm focusing on.
Well, I'm very envious of your forthcoming summer in New Zealand. Wonderful, wonderful country that it is. So if anybody wants to get hold of you, Caroline, livinglawyers.com, is that the website they should visit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still working on my full website and getting it all up and running and blogging and that kind of thing. But at the moment, if you go to livinglawyers.com, there's a place for you to enter your details if you're keen to be involved in the project or you want to find out more. And obviously on LinkedIn and Twitter, and I'm keen to talk to anyone. So anyone who's got an interest in this, whether they're a lawyer or not, or they've got thoughts on this, I'm always happy to talk to people and have my mind opened to better ways of working.
Well, you've got your own serious heritage with the work you've done at Allen Overy, so there's an awful lot of value in getting hold of you, and for many of the law firms that we deal with, I suspect would be worthy of giving you a call and getting in touch, because as I say, I'm not sure every law firm on our panel is super efficient. So everyone can talk about these things and add value by at least thinking about embracing them, even if they don't embrace them.
Absolutely, and that's actually one thing I've certainly learned since I've gone out on my own, is just that actually having a conversation is the first step of change.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be rolling out something huge and massive. Actually, just have a conversation about it and plant that seed, and who knows where it will go.
Well, you will know better than I. The committee meetings or the management meetings that go on in law firms, it's like turning around the QE2. So you need to plant the seed, don't you, of some of these ideas, and then kind of work on it through there. But listen, thank you so much. Have a great summer and good luck with everything.
Thank you very much. It was great to talk.
Thank you. And that was the LawyerFair Daily Podcast. There'll be more tomorrow. Thanks for watching or listening, whichever of the two you've done. Many thanks.
Thanks for listening to the LawyerFair.co.uk Daily Podcast. If you'd like to listen to more, why not subscribe and download each episode via iTunes, or visit us on the LawyerFair.co.uk website.